Hi everyone, today we're going to review Chapter 14, and we're going to start by focusing on westward expansion and immigration. The rise of Andrew Jackson, the first president from beyond the Appalachians, exemplified the movement west. By the late 1850s, half of the Americans were under the age of 30. By 1840, the demographic center of the population map had crossed the Allegheny Mountains, and by 1860, it had crossed the Ohio River. This can be seen on this map showing westward movement of the center of population. You can see each diamond triangle points at where the center of population was by which decade. Life across the Ohio River was downright grim for most pioneer families. They suffered diseases, depression, and premature death. There was unbearable loneliness, especially for women. There were breakdowns and madness, and frontier life could be tough and crude for men as well. Pioneers, marooned by geography, were often ill-informed, superstitious, provincial, and fiercely individualistic. Popular literature abounded with portraits of unique, isolated figures. Even in these days, there were exceptions to the rugged individualism of the day. Pioneers relied upon neighbors for help and upon government for internal improvements to connect the country. Westward movement molded the physical environment. By 1820, trappers were active in the Rocky Mountains. Fur trapping was based on the rendezvous system, which is French for meeting. Trappers and Indians came together to trade beaver pelts for manufactured goods from the east. The beaver all but disappeared from the region as a result. The buffalo were almost annihilated, and on the California coast, traders sought sea otter pelts, driving them to the point of near extinction. Some have called this aggressive, heedless exploitation of the West's natural bounty ecological imperialism. Yet Americans revered nature and admired its beauty. Many found the wild, unspoiled character, especially in the West, to be among the young nation's defining attributes. America had pristine natural beauty which was unspoiled by human hands, and this was a national mystique that inspired literature, painting, and a powerful conservation movement. George Catlin, a painter and student of Native American life, was among the first to advocate for the preservation of nature as a deliberate national policy. He proposed the creation of a national park in the 1830s, which began with Yellowstone in 1872. As the American people moved west, they multiplied at an amazing rate. By mid-century, the population was doubling every 25 years. By 1860, 13 colonies had more than doubled in numbers, and there were 33 states in the Union. The United States was fourth among the most populous nations in the Western world, exceeded by Russia, France, and Austria. This chart shows the population increase, including slaves and Indians. Note the increasing European immigration and the closing of the slave trade, which gradually changes the makeup of the population beginning in 1820. Urban growth continues explosively. By 1790, only 2 American cities could boast populations of 20,000, Philadelphia and New York. By 1860, there were 43, and 300 cities claimed over 5,000 occupants. New York was a metropolis, New Orleans was Queen of the South, and Chicago was the swaggering lord of the Midwest, destined to be the hog butcher for the world. Over-rapid urbanization brought undesirable byproducts. There were smelly slums, inadequate policing, impure water, foul sewage, ravenous rats, and improper garbage disposal. In Boston in 1823, the new sewer system was pioneered, and in New York in 1842, they abandoned wells and cisterns for piped-in water, thus eliminating the breeding place for the disease-carrying mosquitoes. There was a very high birth rate that was accounting for the biggest increase in population, but immigration was also a factor. By 1830s, immigration was at 60,000 a year. The influx tripled in the 1840s and then quadrupled in the 1850s. During the 1840s and 1850s, greater than 1.5 million Irish and nearly as many Germans came. This is a table that shows Irish and German immigration by decade from 1830 to 1900. Why did they come? because Europe seemed to be running out of room and had surplus people. The majority headed out for the land of freedom and opportunity. New transoceanic steamships allowed immigrants to move speedily and cheaply. The United States received far more diverse array of immigrants than any other countries, and they received immigrants from dozens of different nations. Ireland was devastated in the mid-1840s, as 2 million died as a result of the potato famine. Tens of thousands fled from the land of famine for the land of plenty in the Black 40s. Ireland's great export has always been population. They joined the Jews and Africans as dispersed people, which you can read about in Makers of America, the Irish, in your textbook. Many swarmed into seaboard cities like Boston and Philadelphia. New York City became the largest Irish city in the world. The Irish did not receive the red carpet treatment, however. The friendless, famine Irish were forced to fend for themselves. The Ancient Order of Hibernians, a semi-secret society which was founded in Ireland to fight rapacious landlords, served in America as a benevolent society which aided the downtrodden, which also helped spawn a group called the Maguires, which were shadowy Irish miners' union that rocked Pennsylvania coal districts in the 1860s and 1870s. Irish conditions in America, they tended to remain in low-skill occupations. They gradually did improve their lot and their life, usually by acquiring modest amounts of property. The education of children was often cut short. Property ownership counted as a grand success. Politics attracted the Gaelic newcomers, and they gained control of powerful city machines, especially New York's Tammany Hall, and reaped patronage rewards as a result. The politicians tried to cultivate the Irish vote. Nearly 2 million arrived between 1830 and 1860, and politicians glimpsed the political gold in those potential voters, especially in the politically potent state of New York. Because the Irish hatred of England remained very strong, politicians won support with anti-British remarks. The influx of refugees from Germany between 1830 and 1860 was hardly less spectacular than from Ireland. Greater than 1.5 million Germans stepped onto American soil, as you can read about in the Makers of America, the Germans, in your textbook. The bulk were uprooted farmers. Some were liberal political refugees. And in some cases, many cases, Germany's loss was America's gain. America gained Carl Schurz, who became a relentless foe of slavery and public corruption, as he was a revolutionary in Germany who decided to come to America. The Germans also possessed a modest amount of material goods. Most pushed to the lush lands of the Middle West, notably in Wisconsin, for farming. They formed an influential body of voters who were wooed by politicians, but they were less potent politically than the Irish, since they were more widely scattered. The German influence in shaping American life brings to America the Conestoga wagon, the Kentucky rifle, and the Christmas tree. Those are all German contributions. They also supported public schools, including kindergarten, which means children's garden. They promoted music and the arts, and they were relentless enemies of slavery. They were sometimes dubbed the damned Dutchmen and regarded with suspicion. They were seeking to preserve their language and customs, so they settled in compact colonies, aloof from surrounding communities. They were accustomed to Continental Sunday, and they made merry on Sunday. Their old world drinking habits further spurred advocates of temperance. This is a picture of Little Germany in Cincinnati's Over-the-Rhine district in 1887. This is an outward bound, the Quay at Dublin, 1854, which basically shows an Irish person who was fleeing the famine by coming to America in the 1840s and 1850s. This shows the St. Patrick's Day Parade in America in Union Square, New York City. This was a religious festival which was celebrated with a lot of fanfare in America, more so in America than in Ireland, and Irish immigrants used it to boost their ethnic solidarity and to assert their distinctive identity in America. This is a political cartoon satirizing the Irish and German immigrants. Basically, it is a bitter nativist pictured. Nativists were people who disliked the immigrants and feared them. And in this cartoon, they're charging the Irish and German immigrants with stealing elections. The influx of immigration in the 1840s and 1850s inflamed prejudices of American nativists. They feared immigrants would outbreed, outvote, and overwhelm the native stock. And they also took jobs from Native Americans. So as Roman Catholics were regarded by many old-line Americans as following a foreign church. Roman Catholics were on the move, though. They wanted to avoid Protestant indoctrination in public schools, and they began in the 1840s to construct a separate Catholic education system, which was very expensive, but revealed the strength of the religious commitment. With the Irish and German influx, Catholics became a larger religious group. In 1840, they were ranked 5th behind Baptists, Methodists, Presbyterians, and Congregationalists. The Know Nothing Party was a party organized by nativists for political action. Nativists believed that people who were born in the United States were native and that they were better than the immigrants. They agitated for rigid restriction on immigration and naturalization. They agitated for laws authorizing deportation of alien paupers. They promoted lurid literature of exposure, and much of it was pure fiction. The example is Maria Monk's Awful Disclosures. The occasional mass violence occurred against the Catholics. Churches and schools were burned, and some were killed and wounded in days of fighting. Immigrants made the United States one of the most ethnically and racially diverse societies in the world. It's not surprising that cultural clashes occurred. As diversity increases, the potential for conflict because of different ideas increases as well. So the American economy attracted immigrants and ensured them a share of wealth without jeopardizing the wealth of others. The immigrants also helped fuel an economic expansion. The immigrants and American economy both needed each other, and together they will help to bring about the Industrial Revolution, which is the topic of our Part 2, which you will view in the next video.